Hey, what's going on guys? Zedd here, bringing you another Soul Calibur 6 video. Today I'm going to be talking about tech traps and Okizeme in general. So this one was a request based off of my last video, which talked about frame traps and clash setups. So again, this is sort of another video that's going to give you an introduction to some an advanced concept in Soul Calibur. So, again, these videos are intended for someone who, you have a good understanding of your character, you have a good idea of your game plan, you know your combos, but you're like, man, I want to take the next level, right? I want to make setups. I want to do resets, right? Things like that. And so that's what this video is going to be sort of geared towards. So I am assuming you have a basic understanding of the game and how it works, but I'm going to review the Okizeme and Ukemi games, or aspects of the game, just in case you may not know everything. And so for those of you who are beginners or who just want to know about this kind of stuff, you'll also be able to follow along as well. So first up, before we get into what like Oki and Ukemi and Tech Trap are, let's talk about what those words mean and what they actually are. So in the combat lessons section of the training mode, and under Universal Tactics about halfway down, there's really good sections about Ukemi and getting up. It actually talks quite a bit about the things I'm going to talk about in this video. So, I'm kind of rehashing what they say here, but in my own words. But the idea is you can use guard and directions to get off the ground. But we're going to talk about that and different things to consider. So that's what Ukemi means, like getting up off the ground. And Okizeme refers to the frame of time when one of the players is on the ground, sorry, there we go, and the other opponent is up. So usually in these situations, you are plus framed, or you're at plus frames rather, and you can set up a good Oki situation for your character. If you hear terms like that, that's what that means. For example, if you're looking at a combo document and it says less damage, better Oki, right, versus more damage and less Oki, I'm going to show you two different examples. So the first example would be something like, let's just use 3B for example. Okay, so 3B into 6B plus K. 54 damage, optimal damage, not so good Oki. And the reason why is the opponents are able to aerial control away from me, and I don't have control of the situation. Okay? Where on the flip side, a good Oki situation would be 3B, 6KA. So now I'm able to move before the opponent can move. So if you see here, right, I'm able to mash guard before they get up off the ground. So this is considered a good Oki situation. Okay, so that's what that means if you're looking at combos. Now, in terms of different options off the ground, you have either rolls, you can stay down, you can stand block, you can crouch block, and then you can tech backwards, forwards, left, and right. So what I mean by tech, because I'm going to be using that word a lot in this video, would be what happens after a soft knockdown and what you do. So this would be a back tech, right? This is a forward tech, and side tech, etc. It's worth mentioning that they have different frame datas and recovery times. So you'll notice, like if I front tech, right, and I block, it's pretty fast. Oops, it's pretty fast, right? If I back tech and block, there's a little more of a delay, and if I side tech, there's even more of a delay. So getting up with forward Ukemi into soul charge is a really good way to kind of alleviate pressure off of you, right, like this. So it's a good defensive option. It's a defensive way to use forward Ukemi, right? It's not always about using the same directions. So that's kind of what I mean by Ukemis and the Oki game in general, is when one of the players is at an advantage and the other opponent is on the ground at a disadvantage. Okay, that's what Oki means. So with all that said, and again, if you want to know, like if you don't understand the Ukemi or the basics, go into the combat lessons, give it a read. It's a pretty good read. Now let's get into tech traps and talk about some examples of them, why they work, why they don't work, the kind of moves and stuff like that. So a tech trap refers to the instance in which you would do something that would catch the opponent doing a certain thing on Oki. Zedd, what the fuck are you talking about? Well, I'll show you. Okay. So, for example, right, if I have let's have the bot. I'm going to be the one doing the Okizeme options here because I feel like the bot doesn't do a very good job. It's not quite accurate, so just so you know. So for example, we're going to do this. All right. So what's happening here is I'm being knocked to the ground, and this is an Okizeme-able situation, and she's doing a follow-up. Now, if you look at the screen, it does read that it's an actual combos, right? So you'll see here 60 damage, 4 hits. But this is an example of a fake combo. Okay, so now watch what happens when I tech. She misses entirely. Okay, so I was able to evade this situation by teching to her right or my left. But now what happens when I go in the other directions? Okay, so I evade it to the left. Now what happens when I go back? Oh boy, now I've been caught in a full combo. Okay, so this is an example of a tech trap. When I go forward, you'll see the same outcome. So this is an example of a tech trap. In this case, 6BB tech traps forward and back Okizeme off of this move, which is 4A plus B. Okay. And you know it works because you're going to see that little white ring around me when I get up off the ground, which means I've teched in a certain direction, but the opponent has now relaunched me in a counter hit state. So 6BB doesn't launch if it's not a counter hit. Most, if not all, tech traps will count as counter hit because it's countering you getting off the floor. Okay? So to reword that in a way that might make more sense to you, a tech trap is simply an Okizeme counter. Okay? So you are countering the way that the opponent is Okizeming, in other words, getting off the ground using a direction plus G. Okay? That in essence is what a tech trap is. Now, some moves will work better as tech traps than others, and other moves won't work at all. So, and every character has tech traps for the record, and some characters are better at it than others, some characters can set up more situations than others, some characters have more precise options. For example, some characters have tech traps that only work to the right, or only work versus back, or only work versus forward, etc. Things like that. Okay? So I'm going to show you a few different examples of tech traps and what they mean and how they work. So some require counter hit to work and some don't. It's also worth mentioning that, again, a tech trap is a counter hit. So you want to look at moves that have counter hit properties to be your tech traps, because then you get those free counter hit properties. Again, 6BB doesn't launch unless it's a counter hit, but on tech trap, which is considered a counter hit, right, we get the launch state. Okay? Now, other types of moves that work for tech traps are launchers, or horizontal mids, or horizontal lows, but not highs. So this is clear. This is important. When you are Okizeming, you are considered crouched. Okay? Let me show you. So, if I have the bot set to do 3AK regular throw. Okay. I'm sorry, I'll forward tech. It doesn't really work. I'll get the bot to forward tech. There we go. You'll notice that I really can't grab her with throws even though she's stepping up right into them. Right? And the reason why is because, there you go. The reason why is this entire time she's considered crouching. Okay? So you'll see there that it just kind of whiffs until they fully stand up. At which time the bot would have been able to crouch block this, or crouch it in general, or break the throw. Okay? So highs, I could be wrong, but highs never work as tech traps, technically. Sometimes when the opponent's getting a little mashy or you're near the wall or ring edge, some niche instances might make it work. But as far as I'm aware, high attacks can't really be used as tech traps. If your character does have a high tech trap, then that's news to me. But cool, like, could be character specific, I don't really know. But generally, you want to look at mid attacks or horizontal attacks. Okay? So, let's talk about launchers. Okay. So launchers as tech traps can be very finicky. And what I mean by that is depending on whether or not the opponent forward techs or back techs, your hit might go through them or it might not. Now, I don't think I'll be able to showcase it, but sometimes if I went for a 3B here, oops, right? So you see how she got relaunched there, right? But if she back techs, you can see there, that's just a straight whiff, so it doesn't catch back tech. So maybe not the best example, but sometimes your move can go right through them. And the reason why is sometimes the game registers the Ukemi as like there's a shift in position. And so if moves are phasing through opponents on tech, generally it's because they're off axis or your launcher isn't quite centered on them, and it might not work. So you're going to have to lab and kind of figure that out as well. Most tech traps start or end with combos or counter hits. What I mean by that is it's very rare you'll have just a raw hit into a tech trap. The exception being any raw hit that is technically a launcher or that goes into a hard knock or a soft knockdown. What do I mean by soft knockdown? Well, an Ukemiable move. So, right, we'll do 3B. You'll notice here that I can't actually Ukemi. So there's no real tech trap threats here. Okay. But on the flip side, 4K is an Ukemiable knockdown. Therefore, tech traps are now part of the game. Okay. So these are the kind of things you're going to want to look at with your character and consider when you're going through. So some examples are, yeah, the 4A plus B, right? But if I was to hit a 3AK counter hit, okay, I'm gonna turn this counter hit off just so you know that it does indeed like carry over the counter hit. And I'm gonna have her Ukemi to the back. Oh, I flubbed it. Pardon me. Wrong move. There you go. See, so it can be a little touchy when you go for launcher setups, right? Or sometimes they'll get up sooner than you think. Sometimes it requires a delay. There we go. So that one worked. But if I delayed too little or too late, all of a sudden she could block it or it would go right through her, right? So this is the tricky balance of using launchers as tech trap. There you go. Of using launchers as tech traps. Is you don't want to wait too long, but you don't want to go too fast either. Right? Like that. Sometimes a micro step will help, but please keep in mind that if you micro step in this instance, it does somewhat telegraph your intentions. Right? Stuff like that. Okay? So careful about the Ukemi direction. Keep in mind the kind of hits that you're allowed to get after. Keep in mind the stun time that you have to sometimes wait. So if we do to the right, and I go for 3B, it's just going to whiff, right? So what if I assume that she's going to go for that? Well, I'm able to get the crouch throw, right? The reason why crouch throw works is, again, they are considered a crouched opponent, so that works. Or you can do something like, you know, a delay, A slide K, okay? Something like that. You could do 4-4A, right? Right, 4-4A plus B, right? Things like that. So feel free to browse your character's Discord or your combo doc or whatever, see what you have for tech traps and kind of go from there. Learn how they work, learn when they work. Sometimes they work better against the wall or ring edge than others because then back tech is out of the equation, right? So if back tech's out of the equation, you can probably assume that they're either going to horizontal roll or they're going to side Ukemi to try to gain that map advantage, right? So now all of a sudden your horizontal Ukemi options, or rather your horizontal tech trap options are a better read, right? Whereas when you're in open space, it's kind of a open game. Also, please keep in mind the opponent doesn't have to tech at all, right? So if I go for if I go for 3B and there's no tech here, right? Then I kind of pushed her away a little bit, but it's not a big deal. This isn't a very good showcase. There we go. Okay. But if there's no tech, then all of a sudden it doesn't do anything, right? So these are things to keep in mind with tech trap, and just as this is part of the Oki game in general. Now it also comes down to playstyle. For example, personally, I don't really like to go for tech traps. I don't like the risk. Okay, so for me, instead of using, you know, I was using 4A as the example. So instead of using 4A and then tech trapping with 3B, right? There we go. I generally would rather go for 4-4K into 6-6K, right? Or 6B, right? Get that guaranteed damage. But that's a playstyle thing. That's a preference. So everyone is their own person, and your tech traps will differ on your character as well. Their strength, their potency, things like that, right? So that's kind of it for the video. I'm not going to show a bunch of examples like I did in the last one because frame data is a lot more complicated than tech traps, and it's almost necessary to understand how those work, whereas tech traps, it's more necessary to understand how they work for defensive purposes, but in terms of their offensive application, it is entirely up to you, and it is entirely dependent on the character, whether or not you have good tech traps. Some characters have tech trap options that catch all tech directions, which is insane, right? So it's going to come down to what you have at your disposal and what you're comfortable using. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. I know it's not quite as complicated as the other ones. Again, I apologize. So if you have further questions, feel free to comment down below. But I just wanted to showcase or explain some of the things you have to consider. And to recap that, don't use highs. Generally, mid or low horizontals or vertical launchers are used as tech traps, or moves that have counter hit properties like new extensions or different kind of stun or launcher if they're a counter hit, things like that are all things to consider when exploring the realm of tech traps. All right. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one. If you have ideas for videos that you want to see, let me know down below and I'll consider it or add it to the list. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you later.